Okay, guys, so let's get started without any further ado. So again, if you're new to these sessions, if this is your first class, a quick formal introduction on my end. My name is Mohammed Shoaib. I'll be your cybersecurity trainer, and we are learning this course called Certified Ethical Hacking V13, a go-to course, I would say, for people who are planning to start their careers or shift into the cybersecurity career. Okay. And again, I've been training students for the last 5 years, and I've been working in this domain for the last 7 years, currently working as a senior penetration tester. And again, if you have any queries regarding the course, I would recommend watching this video the other day from, I think we took one demo on Wednesday, and then there was a workshop on Sunday as well. Both these recordings might be available on YouTube. You can go through those recordings to have a better picture about about the entire course curriculum, the tools we'll be working on, the day-to-day activities. I've discussed everything in that class. And yesterday, we have covered very basic networking fundamentals, like what networking is, what are networks, okay, what are hosts, what are IP addresses, what are IPv4 addresses specifically, what are the properties of IPv4 addresses, how do you convert a binary number to a decimal number, okay, and from this conversion, how do you get the first IP, what's the last IP, what is the entire total number of IP addresses, what's the range of IP addresses and the sequence of it, and the categories in them. Okay, so we have covered what public and private IPs are. Today we'll be covering what classes are. What is class A, what is class B, what is class C, D, and E, respectively. Okay, so let's get started without any further ado. Now, before we get into the in-depth concept of what classes are, let me specify the range of each of these classes. And it's important to remember these ranges, guys, because as long as you're working in cybersecurity, you'll be seeing these different classes and their IP addresses. So as soon as you look at an IP, you have to figure out which class it belongs to and whether it's a public or a private IP. And I'll also explain why that is important. You know why? Don't worry. But let's talk about the range first. So class A starts here at the first IP 0000, and class E ends at the last IP 255.255.255.255. So the entire range of IP addresses from the first IP till the last IP is divided in these five classes. Okay. And then when you talk about the individual ranges, class A starts from 0 and goes all the way up to 127, 255, 255, 255. Since this is ending at 127, class B starts at 128,000. So all the 255s cycle back to zeros and the leftmost octet increments by 1. Okay. So therefore class B starts at 128,000 and it goes all the way up to 191, 255, 255, 255. Since it's ending at 191, class C starts at 192. From 192,000, it goes up to 223, 255, 255, 255. Since it's ending at 223, class D starts at 224,000. And from 224, it goes all the way up to 239, 255, 255, 255. And since it's ending at 239, class E starts at 240. Okay. And from 240, it goes up to the last type, 255, 255, 255, 255. So the only four numbers that you have to actually remember are these four numbers: 127, 191, 223, and 239. From these four numbers, you get the entire range itself. Okay. Because if you remember this number, you automatically know where the next class is starting at. Class A 0 to 127, class B 128 to 191, class C 192 to 223, class D 224 to 239, and class E 242 to 255. On the left side in the three ending octets, you have all zeros. On the right side in three ending octets, you have all 255s. So nothing to remember about that. Okay. So to easily remember this range, all you have to do is memorize these four numbers itself, nothing more. Okay. And
Um,
again, in each class, oh yeah,
sir,
I
could
think
you
someone.
please repeat it? Sorry, I got a call. Um, I got a call
Again,
in
nothing. We
between.
were just
Could you
discussing the
please
range,
repeat?
Nupur. For each of these classes, you have to just remember these numbers as mentioned. So for each class, there's a starting range and an ending range. Okay, class A 0 to 127, class B 128 to 191, class C 192 to 223, class D 224 to 239, and class E 240 to 255. You just have to remember these four numbers to remember the entire range. Moving on, after that, now in this entire range of classes, every class has two subcategories again. There's something called as public IPs and there's something called as private IPs. So in class A, between 0 and 127, there's a small private IP range from 10,000 to 10.255.255.255. So any IP within this range is a private IP, and any IP outside this range will be a public IP. Okay. I hope you can recall what public and private IPs are, guys. We have discussed that in the last class. Private IPs are the IP addresses you can use in your local intranet networks, home networks, or office networks. For local communication, you go for private IPs. So in class A, any IP between 10.0.0.0 and 10.255.255.255 is a private IP, which can be used in your local home networks. Okay. And any IP outside that range, which means from 0 up to 10 and after 10 from 11 to 127, that entire range is public IP. Okay. For example, if we take this image here, so class A entire range is from 0000 to 127, 255, 255, 255. That's the entire class A range. In that entire class A range, there's a small private IP range from 10.0.0.0 to 10.255.255.255. So any IP within this range is a private IP, and any IP outside that range from 0 up to 10, which is 9.255.255.255, and after 10 from 11.0.0.0 to 127. Those two sets are public IPs. Okay. So in a similar format, in every class, you have a small private IP set and two public IP sets. Okay. So similarly in class B as well, between 128 and 191, there's a small private IP set from 172.16.0.0 to 172.31.255.255. So any IP within this range is a private IP. Any IP outside this range is a public IP. And these public IPs belong to the ISP, Internet Service Provider. For giving you the connection to the internet, they use those public IPs. Okay. And finally, when we talk about class C, between 192 and 223, there's a small private IP range from 192.168.0.0 to 192.168.255.255. Any IP within this range is a private IP, and any IP outside that range will be a public IP. When you talk about class D and class E, there are exceptions, guys. There are no private IPs at all in class D and class E. All the IPs in those two classes are public IPs itself. Okay. To understand this much better, what we're going to do now is we'll perform a small exercise. I'm going to write down some random IPs, and by looking at these ranges, we'll try to figure out which IP is belonging to which class and public or private IPs. Okay. Let me quickly write down some random IPs first. Oh, sorry. Okay, so here, if I start writing some IPs, let's say 10 dot 20 dot 30 dot 40 65 35 45 200. Okay, so I just have some random IPs written down here, guys. Now, looking at these IPs, we'll try to figure out which IP is a public IP and which IP is a private IP and which class they belong to as well. Okay. So looking at this first IP here, 10.20.3.40. Okay. So firstly, you have to figure out which class it belongs to. For an IP to belong to class A, the first octet should be 0 and the ending octet should be 127. Okay. So if it is between 0 and 127, it's class A. Okay. Between 128 and 191, it's class B. Between 192 and 223, it's class C. Okay, so on and so forth. So here the first octet is 10. Where does 10 fall under? Between 0 and 127. So therefore, this is a class A IP. Okay. Now that we know this is class A, we'll look at the specific range. For an IP to be a private IP in class A, first octet needs to be 10. The remaining octets can be anything between zeros and 255s. Similarly, for an IP to be a private IP in class B, what's the condition? First octet needs to be 172. Second octet needs to be between 16 and 31. And the remaining two octets can be anything from 0 to 255s. And for class C, first octet needs to be 192. Second octet needs to be 168. and third and fourth octets can be anything from 0 to 255. For class D and class E, there are no private IPs at all. All of them are public IPs itself. So now looking at this IP, do we know which IP is this, public or private? First octet is 10, and that is 10 here itself. So if it is falling in this range, it's a private IP. Okay. Looking at the next number, we have 192.165.10.20. So 192 falls between here in class C, between 192 and 223. So this is class C. Now, once we know that this is class C, we'll look at this range. First octet is 192, that seems to match. Second octet is 165. But for it to be a private IP, it needs to be 168. So since it's not falling in this range, it is a public IP instead. Okay. Is that clear for everyone? If this is clear, can you give me the answer for the next one? 172, 35, 45, 55. Which class is this, and is this public or private? Any answers, guys?
Class B, class B,
Class
sir.
B. Class B, correct answer.
And
Is this public or
it's
private?
public.
It's
Public.
public.
Public, sir.
Perfect answer. Okay, why is this public? First
In the
octet is
first,
172, that seems to match. But the
yeah, but
second octet,
second is not matching.
yeah, it's outside 16 and 31, so therefore it's a public IP. Next one, 200, 100, 200, 100.
It's class C, sir.
Class
And
C.
public.
Public, correct answer. Next one, 142, 250, 193, 221.
It's class B and public, sir.
Perfect. Next one. I hope the others are following along as well, guys. I hope you're understanding the reasoning for why they are public or private and which class they belong to.
Class B
Class
private.
B and private, sir.
Class B and private. Next one.
Class A and
Class-
public, sir.
Class C. Class A.
And
Public.
Public.
perfect answer. Next one.
It's class C, sir. Class
Class
C and public.
Public.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, because it's 169 here. Okay. Next one.
It's class
Class
C and
C
private.
and private.
Private. Correct answer. Next one.
It's class E, sir.
Class E.
And
Okay.
public.
And public. Perfect. Okay, nothing more. So again, this is how you can categorize which IP belongs to which class and whether it's public or private IPs, guys. Now, if you recall, in the last class, I've shown you how do you check your public and private IP as well. If I go to my browser here, and in my browser, if I check for what is my IP, what does this show me, guys? It shows me my public IP. Okay, so if I click on any of these websites, I get an IP here, something like 49, 204, 239, 65. If I copy this IP and if I paste it here, okay, 1 second, let me just paste it somewhere.
So what we need to search to find public IP?
Again, what is my IP in the web browser? So looking at this IP now, 49, 204, 239, 65. Can you tell me which category is this?
It's class A, sir.
Class A.
And public.
Definitely public. Okay, so as you remember, in the last class, I've shown you to check what your public IP is. You go to your browser and search for what is my
So
IP there.
this public IP is given for what? Like, I didn't
For the
understand.
internet access. So for my internet access, this is the
Oh,
public IP given to me by my internet service provider. Okay.
okay. So this is
Typically,
the like to access anything over the internet, any website,
any
anything.
website. Yes, exactly. Over the internet. For my access. So in my
Mhm.
network, when any of the devices wants to access the internet, that is the
Mhm.
IP provided to me by my internet service provider. Okay. On the other hand, if you talk about the private IP, I have to open up my command prompt and I have to type the command IP config.
config.
Yes. And if I check over here, this is the IP. Now looking at this IP, can you tell me which category is it falling under? I hope it's visible, guys. Oh, sorry.
Class C private.
Just a second. I think it's not visible anymore. Yeah, here it is.
Class C and
Class
private.
C and private.
Definitely. Okay. So as you can see, 192.168.0.5, this is my private IP and it falls under class C. So if you had a question specifically, why am I getting 192.168 here? Why am I getting some random IP there? It's because of these ranges, which have been fixed by the people who invented IP addresses. So it's important to remember these ranges, guys, because in the upcoming sessions, when we go through different logs in the system, you see similar IP addresses there. So as soon as you look at an IP, you have to figure out which class it belongs to and whether it's public or private. Because from that, you can understand where the attack is initiating from. If it's a private IP, it means the attacker is in the same local network as you. If it's a public IP, it means the attack is coming from the internet, which means he's in the external network. He's not in your local network, he's somewhere externally in the world, and he's trying to connect to your network from an external source. Okay. So that distinguishing factor will only be possible to understand if you remember these ranges. Okay, so that's why it's important to remember this entire table. Okay, as soon as you look at an IP, you have to figure out which class it belongs to and whether it's public or private. Okay, now a very commonly asked question by students is, why do we have 5 separate classes? Why not just one single class with some public and private IPs in it? It would have been definitely easier to remember, right? But no, there's a reason for this. Every class has a unique number of network and host portions. So class A has one network portion and 3 host portions. Class B has 2 network portions and 2 host portions. Class C has 3 network portions and 1 host portion. Class D and Class E have all network portions itself. So as you're going down the line, the network portions are increasing in number, if you notice. Okay. So class A has 1, class B has 2, class C has 3, class D has.
Network portion as in like network and host portion.
I'm
What
going to
does it
explain
mean?
that. Right. I'm going to explain that now. So what are these network and host portions and what do they signify? Okay. But again, it's important to remember, as mentioned, class A has 1 network portion, class B has 2, class C has 3, class D and class E have 4 network portions. But yeah, what do they signify? What do I mean by network and host portions? To understand this, let's take the example of class C first. Okay. So your class C has 3 network portions and 1 host portion in it. Okay. Now, if we remember the private IP address range for class C, if I open up my notepad file again, here, just a second. Yeah. So we all know class C starts at 192.168.0.0. That's the private IP range for class C. Starts from 192.168.0.0, goes all the way up to 192.168.255.255. And in these 4 octets, the first 3 octets are the network portions. 192.168.0 belong to the network portions, and the last octet here belongs to the host portion. But what do I signify by that? What does it mean? Let's talk about that. So if you remember the sequence which we learned in the last class, if you have this as the first IP, 192.168.0.0, what would the next IP be, guys? You have 192.168.0.1. So the rightmost octet increments by 1. Then you have 0.2, then you have 0.3, then you have 0.4, then you have 0.5. This goes all the way up to 0.255. And after 0.255, what happens next? This 255 cycles back to 0, and the next octet increments by 1. So you have 1 0 there. I hope you can recall the sequence was discussed in the last session, in the
Yes.
session, right? So now what I mean by network and host portions is, as long as the host portion changes, it just signifies or denotes a different host. Okay. And as long as the network portion is same, it indicates all of them belong to the same network. Okay. To elaborate on this, the ignore the 0 0 IP. Okay. If you talk about 0 1, this could be my Wi-Fi router. 0 2, this could be my laptop. 0 3, this could be my smartwatch. 0 4, this could be my smart TV or whatever. So each unique host portion is identifying a unique host in the network. And all of these hosts belong to the same network, which is identified by the network portions, 192.168.0.network. Okay. So this here is the entire 192.168.0.network. Okay. And in that 192.168.0.network, each of these is a unique host. Okay. 0.1 is the first host, the second host, the third host, the fourth host. As such, you can connect a maximum of 255 hosts. Now, after 0.255, you have 1 0. And whenever there's a change in the network portion, the network divides over there, which means now from 10 here, there's a completely new network starting. Okay, so 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, all of these belong to the 192.168.1 dot network. Okay, this is the first host, the second host, the third host, the fourth host in 192.168.1 dot network. Okay, and these devices can only communicate among themselves. They cannot communicate beyond their network. So this 0.0 to 0.255 can only communicate among themselves. They cannot communicate with any other network or any other device outside their network. Okay. So the 0255 can't communicate with 10 because the network ends over here. Okay. Similarly, from 10 to 1255, that's one singular network. And after 1255, the network divides again. Okay. And then the two dot network starts. So from 20 to 255, they can communicate with each other. And again, after 2255, the network ends again and then starts 3.0. Okay, so what I signify or what I want to denote by the network and host portions is each host portion indicates a separate host. Okay, and the network portion gives the identity for the entire network containing all those hosts. Okay, so here, if I go back to the presentation slide, in every network now here, if you notice, okay, so 00 to 0255, 10 to 1255, 20 to 2255, each of these is a separate network. Okay, and in each network, we can connect a maximum of 255 hosts. That's the significance of class C with one host portion and three network portions. Okay, so no matter which network you take here, every network has the same number of hosts in it from 1 to 255. Okay, so this is where we use class C in small home networks, sorry, in small networks such as home networks or organization networks, where you don't have a requirement for connecting more than 255 devices. There you go for class C. Okay, is that clear, everyone, what the network and the host portion signifies?
So to communicate with different network, it will require public IP.
No. Yeah, again, there's another concept called a router, a Wi-Fi router, or any home network router. These routers are capable of transmitting packets between two different networks. You don't need a public IP for that. Okay. In organizations, if you have a HR department and a networking department separately, so in between two departments, again, this could be used by the HR department. This could be used by the let's say networking or architecture department, and in between they'll place a router there. Okay, a networking device. That router is capable of communicating across two different networks. Okay, and all of these devices can communicate with each other with a switch. So there's something called a networking switch. This is what it looks like if I go to my browser and if I search for a networking switch. This is what it looks like. So a switch has multiple ports in it. Okay, and each port you connect each system and they can communicate with each other. Okay, and then you'll have something called a router. A router allows you to communicate between two different networks. You don't need a public IP there. You can still communicate, but you need a separate device called a router for that. Okay, quite in-depth concept. Let's not again transgress into that already.
The
Okay.
main difference between router and switches?
A switch allows you to communicate devices in the same network. A router allows you to communicate devices in different networks. That's the main difference.
Okay.
Okay, right.
But
So any
sir,
questions
within
regarding
same
class C here,
network,
guys? Yeah, yeah. Nupur,
I
you
mean
see.
to connect. No, I'm getting confused. Actually, to connect with each other in like devices are connecting in the same network, so it requires
Uh-huh.
switches to connect them with each other.
Right. So in your organizations as well, if you have multiple desktops there, each desktop will
Mm-hmm.
have a LAN cable. So one end will connect to
Yeah.
your laptop or to your computer, and the other end
Mm-hmm.
will connect to a switch like this. And that is how they are able to
Okay.
communicate with each other. They're connected in one single network. Okay, this is one alternative. Or you can connect to a Wi-Fi router also. Your Wi-Fi router also acts as a switch, but they are wirelessly connected. You don't need any LAN cables there. Okay, so that's another alternative.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Right. So any questions or doubts up to this point regarding class C, guys? I know it's a bit complex. This is all new to you. So don't worry. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask, guys. There are supposed to be questions here because these are completely uh, alien concepts to all of you. So do not worry if you don't understand it at the first go. Do not hesitate to ask questions. I'll explain as many times as you want and much more simpler methods if possible. Okay. So any questions or doubts up to this point? What class C is, what networks are, what hosts are? For others who have not joined these sessions earlier also, it might seem a bit out of context. Please do not hesitate to ask questions. Adesh.
Sir,
Oh yeah.
mm, sir, two different network of different class. Do we require public IP or nothing like that?
Just remember, public IP is only for internet communication. Okay. If you're talking about local network communications and in your organizations, in your home network, if you have two
Mhm.
different, any number of networks, if you want intercommunication, there's no requirement for public IP there. Public IP is only used for internet connection. Okay. If you want to visit a website on the internet, for that you
Uh-huh.
require public IP. Other than that, you can always
Okay.
communicate between different networks with private IPs also. You just need a separate kind of a device for that called a router. Okay, that's all.
Okay, okay. So from all the devices, you would be using the same public IP to access the internet with all other
Yes,
like
all of them will share
mobile
the same public IP.
and
Exactly.
laptop and all. Okay.
Right. Definitely. So if you remember the diagram which we discussed yesterday, if I just go a few slides back, if you notice this diagram. So in my home network, all of these devices get, each device gets a unique private IP. But all of them will share one unique public IP itself. Okay, so no matter what device you take here, all of them are going to share one single public IP, which will be used to access the internet here. Okay, so each of
Yeah.
these devices in the network will get a unique private IP. They all use a unique, one single public IP to access the internet. Okay, in the organizations as well, it's the same thing. Okay,
Yeah.
right. Moving on, let's talk about class B now. So again, class B, the situation for class B arises where you have a requirement of connecting more than 255 devices. So let's say in your network, you have 500 devices. So in such a case, class C is useless there because class C's limit is only 255 devices, not more than that. So for a scenario where you have more than 255 devices to connect in a singular network, then you go for class B. Class B has two network portions and two host portions. Okay. So for class B, the private IP starts at 172.16.00. Okay. So in this entire 172.16.00, the first two portions are the network portions. Last two portions are the host portions. Okay. Simple logic to remember. As long as the host value is changing, it just indicates a change in the host or the device. Whenever the network value changes, it indicates a change in the network itself. Okay. So now when you take this IP 172.16.00, the last two portions are host portions. So when we talk about the sequence now, after 00, you have 01, 02, 03, 04, 05, goes all the way up to 0255. Now after 0255, you have 10. And please note, the network doesn't divide here. Unlike class C, after 0255 at 10, the network is dividing there because the third portion is also network portion. But in class B, third portion is also host portion itself. So 0255 can now communicate with 10 also. Okay. And all the IPs are under it. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, all the way up to 1255, then 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, which goes up to 2255, 30, 31, 32, 33, which goes up to 3255. Like that, it can go on and on and on. And somewhere down the line, you would have 2550, 2551, 2552, 2553, which goes up to 255, 255. Now, once it reaches the maximum values in both these octets here, they cycle back to zeros, and the 16 now changes to 17. So whenever there's a change in the network portion, the network divides over there. Okay. As long as there's a change in the host portion, it's irrelevant. All of these are just different hosts in the same network. But whenever there's a change in the network portion, the network divides. Okay. So from 16.00 all the way up to 16.255.255, all of this is one single network itself. Okay. And in this one single network, you can connect a maximum of 255 into 255 devices because each last octet here is repeating 255 times for every third octet. Okay. So for 0, it's repeating 255 times. For 1, it is repeating 255 times. For 2, it is repeating 255 times. And this third octet repeats 255 times itself. So 255 into 255. Okay. So in each class B network, you can connect a maximum of 255 into 255 IPs. Okay, so from 1600 to 16.255.255, this is one network. From 1700 to 17.255.255, another network. 1800 to 18.255.255, another network. 1900 to 19.255.255, another network. Like that, it goes all the way up to 3100 to 31.255.255. That's the last network. So in class B, in any network, you can connect a maximum of 255 into 255 IPs, which is a much larger number. To be precise, 65,535 devices. Okay. And finally, when you come to class A, which has one network portion and three host portions, here from 10,000 all the way up to 10,255, 255, 255. All of these belong to one single network itself, the 10 dot network. Okay. After 10, the 11 is a public IP. Okay. So in class A, you only have one single largest network. Okay. And in this one single network, you can connect a maximum of 255 into 255 into 255 IPs. That's the relevance of class A. Okay. So each class is significant on the dependency of their network and host portions. Host portion specifies how many hosts you can connect in that network. Network portion gives you the identity for the entire network itself. Okay. Is that clear for everyone? Any questions or doubts up to this point? Nupur, Adesh, Shah.
So the more host means we can connect the more number of devices in a network.
Yes, definitely. More hosts you have, more device. Host is nothing but devices itself. Nupur. If you remember, we discussed that in the last class. Each host signifies an individual device in the network.
Uh-huh.
So each host
Okay.
is one single device. That's all.
So it is used for like where it is used, this class A.
When you have a requirement for these many devices to connect. So theoretically speaking, it's possible. Practically not so. Okay, so you can use any class in your network, in your home network. But it just depends on how many devices you're connecting. Okay. For small networks, you go for
Okay.
class C. For larger networks, you can go for class B or class A. Anything. It's your choice.
So in
Okay.
organization mainly it is used class B and class A. Is it?
It depends on the network size. If it's a small
Okay.
network, they can go for class C. If it's a larger network, they can choose anything, class B or class A.
Okay.
Anything would work. Okay.
Okay.
Class D and Class C don't have any private IPs in them, guys. They are public IPs itself. But Class D and Class E public IPs are special public IPs. Class A, B, C public IPs are for internet connection. Class D and Class E public IPs are not used for internet connection. They're used by special organizations, such as your research and development organizations, companies like DRDO, or again ISRO, okay, your military organizations, RAW, ISI, FBI, CIA, CBI, okay, your weather forecasting services, okay, weather broadcasting services, sorry. Okay, all of these special organizations use Class D and Class E public IPs. They're not given to the general public for the internet access. For internet access, you only have the first three classes, Class A, B, C. Class D, Class E public IPs are reserved for special organizations. Okay, that's the relevance of each class in the entire IPv4 range. Okay, is that clear? Any questions, Adesh, Shravani, Nupur?
No, sir.
Right. Others, Shravani, any questions? Adesh,
No.
any
No,
questions?
sir.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, that's that, guys. Nothing further for the demo today. Again, as mentioned, there's a few more concepts to discuss, but again, that will be on Monday for the registered students. There's a few more advanced concepts. What's subnet mask? How do you assign a private IP? Okay, how do you assign it manually? How do you assign it automatically from a DHCP server? Okay, what's DORA process? What is a DNS server? Okay, where do we use DNS servers on the internet? Okay, what are special IPs? We have these all concepts to cover, but again, that will be on next session, which is Monday. Okay, and again, I think the link will change, guys. So if you have not registered already, please do register at the earliest. We have had demos this entire week. Okay, and this is the last demo, and from next Monday we have all registered classes. Okay, and if you have not if you have missed out the earlier sessions, guys, nothing to worry. Just go to your browser, search for cybersecurity DURGASOFT, and filter with the recently uploaded videos.
Same kind.
Okay, and you'll see the videos here. As you can see, this was the demo yesterday. Okay, so again, those are all the demos we have, which we have
Sir,
uploaded today.
same like if at my home I'm using mm,
Uh-huh.
these private IP, so like any other places all around me, like all over the world, like same IPs cannot be used by different at like different
They
people at
can
different places.
no, you can repeat the private IPs as many times as you want, Nupur. Because when you
Okay.
talk about home networks, all of them are isolated. What
Mhm.
matters is when you connect to the internet, it's your unique public IP which matters. For example, let's say
Okay.
this is my home here and this is your home here. Okay.
Mhm.
So in my home, I have a Wi-Fi router. In your home, you have your Wi-Fi router. Okay. And then I have my own devices at my home here. And at your home, you have your own devices again here. And all of these devices actually can use the same private IPs. So my router can get 192.168.0.1. My other device is 192.168.0.2. And this is 192.168.0.3. And this is 192.168.0.4. And at your home also, you can use the same exact IPs 0.1,
Okay.
0.2,
Mhm.
0.3, 0.4 because they are completely isolated. They are not connected to each other. When they communicate with the internet, the connection happens on your unique public IPs. So now your router, so there's an ISP here, Internet Service Provider. Okay, so this ISP will provide a public IP to my router and your router. And these public IPs will be unique. So I could get something like 1, 2, 3, 4, and you could get something like 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So when you're connecting from your systems, all the connections on the internet will happen with your unique public IPs. Okay. So if you're connecting to Google, you'll connect with your public IP. And if I connect to Google, I'll connect with my public IP. And they're completely unique. Okay. So all the internet connections will happen on your unique public IPs. Okay. And your
So,
private
sir,
IPs
all
can be repeated
so
as many
all
times
over
as
the world, we need to have unique different public IPs all over the
definitely.
world. Like,
Definitely. For every internet connection that you take, you'll have a unique public IP itself, guys. Okay.
okay. And who is the ISP, internet service provider? Like, who are they?
Companies like Airtel, Act 5 Minute, Reliance Jio, Hathway, all these companies are ISPs, internet service providers. Where are you getting the internet connection from? Airtel,
Okay.
Tata, Docomo, Reliance Jio. In US, you have ISPs like AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon. All these companies are ISPs, internet service providers.
Okay. Okay.
Right. So at my home, I have Act 5 Minute connection. So Act 5 Minute is my ISP, internet service provider. They provide the public IP for me to access the internet. Okay. The person who ever
Okay.
set up your router for you to get you the internet access, that company is the ISP, internet service provider. Exactly.
मीन जिस कंपनी का राउटर होगा वही प्रोवाइड करेंगे
नॉट
पब्लिक आईपी.
कंपनी का जो अगेन आपके घर पे जब आपने इंटरनेट कनेक्शन लगाया था यू माइट हैव कॉन्टैक्टेड सम पर्सन राइट एयरटेल
राइट.
वालों को कॉल किया होगा या
जी
एक्ट
जी जी,
5 मिनट
एयरटेल.
वालों को सॉरी
एयरटेल एयरटेल है.
हाँ राइट सो एयरटेल इज द आईएसपी देयर वो लोग उनका खुद का राउटर लाएंगे या दूसरे कंपनी का भी
ओके.
राउटर ला सकते हैं टीपी लिंक डी लिंक वो कंपनी
ओके.
का राउटर अलग होगा लेकिन जो इंटरनेट का कनेक्शन दे रहा है हु इज गिविंग यू द इंटरनेट कनेक्शन देयर दैट इज द आईएसपी इंटरनेट सर्विस प्रोवाइडर
ओके. गॉट
they're,
इट.
they're providing you the service of internet with the public IPs
ओके.
right so yeah that's that any other questions or doubts guys before we exit the session today yeah okay assuming no questions guys we can exit the session here and yeah
Thank you so much for such amazing explanation. Thank you for the class today.
no problem. So yeah, that's it. We can exit the session here. We'll connect back on Monday again. Have a good weekend. Bye bye. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Take care.